You can chase rough idle, stumble, and hesitation for months, replacing MAP sensors and cleaning throttle bodies, with no codes and no answers. Yet you might miss the one hidden culprit nearly every technician overlooks: a partially plugged MAP sensor port just 3 to 5 millimeters across, clogged by sticky, tar-like oil vapor and carbon. This tiny port is the engine computer's only window into manifold pressure, vital for fuel and spark. When it is choked, signal voltages drift, but the OBD2 system will not flag P0107, P0108, or P0106, because closed-loop fuel trims disguise the problem and partial blockages dampen sensor response. From GM, Subaru, and Ford EcoBoost to Duramax diesels, countless owners swap sensors that are not broken, as PCV vapor, EGR soot, and worn piston rings quietly clog the works, sometimes every 15,000 miles. Why is this 5-minute fix so ignored? And why does it remain invisible on even the most advanced scan tools? That is the blind spot we are about to uncover. Rough idle with no check engine light can drive even the most patient owner up the wall. The car shakes at stoplights, stumbles when you tap the gas, but every scan tool returns a clean slate. Shops swap the MAP sensor, manifold absolute pressure sensor, sometimes 2 or 3 times, but the idle stays lumpy. Owners pour money into new sensors, gaskets, and even throttle bodies, chasing a problem that never throws a code. One GMC Sierra owner racked up over $400 on parts and labor, only to see the same rough idle return within weeks. A Subaru Forester spent months in and out of shops, with technicians blaming everything from bad fuel to faulty injectors, until a simple cleaning fixed it in minutes. The frustration is not just about wasted money. It is the sense that something invisible is sabotaging the engine, hiding just out of reach. The real culprit is a tiny port, barely 3 to 5 millimeters wide, connecting the MAP sensor to the intake manifold. Over time, oil vapor from the positive crankcase ventilation system, carbon from combustion, and sticky exhaust gas recirculation soot drift through the intake and settle in this narrow passage. The buildup forms a tar-like film that slowly chokes the port, especially on high-mileage engines like the GM 3800 V6 and Duramax LML diesels, which can clog every 15,000 to 30,000 miles. Mark Gittleman, a master technician, calls this the most overlooked cause of rough idle after 10 years or 100,000 miles. When this port clogs, the engine computer gets a delayed or damped pressure signal. The voltage from the silicon diaphragm inside the MAP sensor, a Wheatstone bridge measuring manifold absolute pressure, stays within normal range, so OBD2 never sets a code like P0107, P0108, or P0106. Instead, the engine control module quietly adjusts fuel trims to compensate, masking the problem until idle quality and fuel economy start to suffer. The result is a diagnostic blind spot, months of frustration, hundreds spent, and no answers, until someone checks the hidden MAP port. A healthy MAP sensor acts as the engine computer's main window into what is actually happening inside the intake manifold. This tiny port, usually just 3 to 5 millimeters wide, connects the sensor's silicon diaphragm to the swirling air and vacuum below the throttle. When everything is clean, the port lets manifold pressure reach the sensor instantly. The silicon chip inside flexes with every pulse, bending strain gauges wired in a Wheatstone bridge. That flex translates real-world pressure into a voltage signal the ECU can read in real time. At idle, when vacuum is strongest, the MAP sensor typically outputs around 1 volt. Open the throttle wide, and the signal jumps up, often to 4.5 volts, as manifold pressure rises toward atmospheric. The ECU uses these voltages to decide exactly how much fuel and spark the engine needs, moment by moment. If the port is clear, the sensor's response is crisp. snap the throttle, and the voltage climbs or drops in milliseconds. That speed is crucial. Any lag or damping means the computer is flying blind, guessing at load and airflow. Most OBD2 systems expect the map signal to stay within a certain range, about 0.5 to 4.5 volts, and only flag a fault if the voltage goes out of bounds. The fault codes are P0107 for low, P0108 for high, or P0106 if the signal does not match the expected pattern. But those checks do not catch a slow or delayed signal. As long as the sensor voltage lands inside the window, the computer assumes everything is fine, even if the engine stumbles at idle or hesitates off the line. That is why the map port's tiny size and its role as the ECU's eye into the manifold makes it so critical and so vulnerable when overlooked. Sticky varnish inside a map sensor port does not happen overnight. It is the slow work of chemistry and engine design, quietly at play every mile you drive. The main culprit is oil vapor from the PCV system. As blow-by gases escape the crankcase, they carry a fine mist of oil into the intake. In engines like the GM 3800 Series 2 V6, the PCV outlet sits just upstream of the map port, so every drop of oil vapor has a straight shot to the sensor. Over time, this oil condenses and coats the walls of the tiny 3 to 5 millimeter opening. Once sticky, it acts like flypaper for carbon and soot. EGR flow adds another layer of trouble. Exhaust soot mixes with the oil film, building up a tar-like sludge that shrinks the port's diameter even further. Turbocharged engines, such as Ford's EcoBoost and the Duramax LML diesel, are even more at risk. Higher boost pressures mean more blow-by, and their PCV and EGR lines often route directly next to the map port. On the Duramax LML, for example, the turbo's crankcase ventilation valve can inject oil mist right into the intake and EGR soot piles on top. In these engines, some techs report map ports clogging every 15,000 to 30,000 miles, far faster than naturally aspirated engines. GDI engines, with their lack of fuel wash, face even quicker fouling. Without gasoline cleaning the intake, oil and carbon build up unchecked. Subaru's Boxer engines, despite their flat design, see oil drift toward the centrally mounted map port, especially after 100,000 miles. The chemical cocktail is the same. Oil vapor polymerizes into sticky varnish at intake temperatures, soot and carbon cling to it, and any coolant leak only accelerates the mess. The result is a slow, silent narrowing of the map port, one that almost no routine service ever catches. OBD2 systems are designed to catch big problems, not subtle ones. When a map sensor port starts to clog, the signal it sends to the engine control unit doesn't suddenly jump out of range. Instead, the voltage changes become sluggish, like a pressure gauge with syrup in the line. Most engine control units only check the map sensor's response during a short window, usually 2 to 4 seconds after startup or after a sudden throttle change. During that time, the software allows the sensor to drift as much as 20% from expected values before it even thinks about setting a code. For example, code P0106, P0107, or P0108. A partially restricted port, even one that is 50 to 70% blocked, usually keeps the voltage inside the normal band, about 0.5 to 4.5 volts. The computer sees numbers it expects, so it never triggers a fault. The real catch is that these monitors are not watching for slow, damped responses or steady-state bias. As long as the map voltage lands in the right spot during those brief checks, the system gives it a clean bill of health. Meanwhile, closed-loop fuel trims quietly cover up the issue. The oxygen sensors notice the air-fuel mixture drifting, so the engine control unit tweaks injector timing to compensate, smoothing things out just enough to avoid a code. But drivability takes a hit. Idle goes rough, acceleration stumbles, and fuel economy slips. The software is blind to the root cause. That is why so many techs chase their tails, swapping sensors and checking wiring, while the real problem sits hidden in a port that almost never gets inspected. A Subaru Forester, plagued by rough idle and rich running, bounced between shops for months. Mechanics blamed everything from injectors to bad fuel. Only after finding an oily film choking the MAP port, nearly 80% blocked, did a quick cleaning restore a smooth idle on the spot. A Ford EcoBoost owner faced surging idle with no codes. Carbon soot from a leaky EGR cooler had layered the MAP port. 5 minutes with solvent cleared the passage, bringing instant throttle response and a steady idle. Duramax LML fleet trucks logged repeated downtime for idle hunting. After a dealer memo recommended MAP port inspection, a routine cleaning protocol cut idle fuel use by 12% and slashed unscheduled service calls by nearly a third. One GMC Sierra owner swapped out 3 sensors, spending over $400 before a clogged port revealed itself. A single cleaning fixed the idle, ending months of frustration. Each story points to the same overlooked culprit and the same simple solution. Cleaning a clogged map sensor port takes less time than a coffee break and costs a fraction of a replacement. Start by disconnecting the battery, then unplug the sensor and remove it with a basic socket or a Torx driver. Use only mass airflow sensor cleaner or electronic parts cleaner, and do not use carburetor, brake, or throttle body sprays, which can damage the sensitive silicon element. Spray the cleaner directly into the port, then gently agitate with a soft synthetic brush or a pipe cleaner for 30 seconds. Flush with compressed air, let it dry, and reinstall, torquing bolts to the factory specification. The whole job runs under $45 in tools and supplies, compared to $176 to $534 for a shop MAP sensor swap. For high-mileage turbo diesel and gasoline direct injection engines, inspection of the port every 15,000 to 30,000 miles is recommended. For port-injected engines, check at major service intervals. No automaker has solved this with a self-cleaning sensor. Routine inspection is the only way to keep drivability sharp and costs down. Today, a sticky tar-like MAP sensor port remains the most overlooked cause of rough idle with no codes. No manufacturer offers a self-cleaning solution. Just a 5-minute fix most shops never check. Until inspection becomes routine, countless engines will stumble into the diagnostic blind spot. Keep your tools and mind open.